hear for David Henry. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the beautiful Castro Theater. And thank you very much for being here at CAAMFest35, the largest Asian American film festival in the world. But you know, we couldn't have that distinction if we didn't have the support of you. So we want to thank all of you for being here and supporting this great event, as well as the great organizations behind it. And it's not that hard, right? You get to come to a beautiful theater like this, watch great entertainment and great documentaries, and we really appreciate the involvement that you're showing here. I'm Robert Honda, and I do the news for NBC Bay Area, and I also host a weekly talk show called Asian Pacific America. And I hope some of you have ratings books at your home. And one of the things that we like to do is showcase artistic and cultural performances. It's sort of almost a mission of mine, because growing up, I always felt as though Asian American and Pacific Islander communities and artists just did not have enough access to mainstream media, mainstream exposure, and in our small way, we are trying to do that by highlighting one of those kind of acts on every show every week. And we also have done specials on Japanese internment and the Chinese American community. And we are so proud to be here celebrating CAAMFest. And we have supported the event every year. We will continue to do it because it's an important event for the community and for all the people who care about that part of the community that sometimes gets ignored. And it's an important part of the community. It's a crucial part of the community. And we're happy to be a part of it. Thank you for being a part of that as well. And we get to celebrate the end of another successful festival. 11 days, the community has gathered in museums, theaters, galleries to celebrate the stories of our community. Stories that don't often get told. Sometimes they're funny, they're always enlightening, and maybe even sometimes disturbing. But they help shape and form the personality, the accurate profile, the way that the community is, the well-rounded community that we are, rather than the model minority or some of the other kind of small, narrowly focused viewpoints that we sometimes see. And it's from these artists that we're able to do that. You know, the best documentaries, they bring history to life, but they also help us see past events and show the relevance that they are to us today. I'm not going to thank the president for helping us do that this time. But he did help bring about a very important thing for all of us to remember, which is whether it's internment, whether it's the Chinese Exclusion Act, whether it's those kind of things, they teach us how to deal with those kind of situations now, and hopefully to avoid them. So even though it's been kind of painful to see it, that's the reality that we have today. And that's why these stories are so much more important now than maybe they were ever before. And you know, it can't be done without the support of the community and people like you. Please support CAAM, please support the community partners that they have, and please support all of the projects they do, as well as the artists and the filmmakers and the storytellers that are all a part of it. It's your support that makes it, and again, we can't count on support from above. Some of that's probably going to go away. We need to make sure that it doesn't happen. And it's on us to keep that in mind. You know, I had some people know about this. They wanted, some people at the station wanted to revamp our show. And they said they would like to see it become more of like a newsmaker show, talking about sort of you know, talking heads kind of a show. Because it's a lot of trouble to put on the artistic and cultural kind of performances that we put on. And I just want you to know that we will never do that. We will never do that. We are here to support the community and all of the aspects that include the arts. And we will always do that, and we hope that you will always keep that as part of your mission as well. So again, thank you for supporting CAAM, both here as well as when you go out those doors to all the other events and all the other things that they do. And we want to thank CAAM for doing what they do, because, you know, putting on these kind of things is very difficult. It's like throwing a party. The host hardly ever has any fun. But they do it all for everybody else. And so we want to make sure that that gets across. Recently, I was able to do a show on the Chinese American community, and the Chinese Exclusion Act, of course, was a big part of it. And I don't mind saying that as proud as we were of that show, I think Rick and Lee would probably do a bit more of a thorough job than I did. But it's always important to tell these stories, and one of the people that helped us tell that story is our first esteemed speaker. He is the Executive Director of the Center for Asian American Media. Please welcome Stephen Gong.
Thank you very much, Robert. Hello, everyone. Hello. Great. We have a wonderful film for you to see, so I'm going to speak fast, read fast. I have 3 things to share with you tonight. First, a few words of thanks, starting with our presenting and grand sponsors, Comcast Xfinity, 96.5 KOIT, AARP, the Asian Art Museum, AT&T DirecTV, and Buick. I'd also like to recognize our community co-presenters for tonight's film, Chinese for Affirmative Action, the Chinese Historical Society of America. These are great organizations. Asian Americans for Community Outreach, Angel Island Immigration Foundation, Chinatown YMCA, OCA San Francisco, the API Council, and Cameron House. You know, that absolutely, this is what this film is about, how our community got created. I'd also like to acknowledge the CAAM board members, supporters, and donors, the hardworking CAAM staff, interns, the 300+ volunteers. A special shout out to Masashi Iwano for being the everyone on the CAAM team brought all of their heart and passion to this work these past 11 days, so please, let's give them a round of applause. That was the first thing I had to talk to you about. The second thing is, I'd like to announce that this is our last festival in March. Did I get your attention? Starting next year in 2018, we will be moving CAAMFest to the month of May, which is Asian American Heritage Month. Marketing, and you've all got it. This is a time, as you know, when civic, cultural, and corporate entities celebrate Asian American heritage and communities. We will align our public broadcast work and the associated community engagement efforts with the live celebratory extravaganza that is CAAMFest. We thus intend to increase the reach and impact of Asian American stories nationally. And at the same time, we'd like to highlight the San Francisco Bay Area as the cultural heart of Asian America and become a national and international destination for those who want to experience the best in Asian American culture. I'd like to invite all of you and all of the organizations that you represent to join us in this effort to really increase the presence of the Asian American cultural experience and share it with the world. Stay tuned for details. We've got 14 months to work on this together. Finally, I'd like to say a few words about tonight's film, which serves as a fitting capstone to our theme this year of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. For in revisiting the history of the Chinese Exclusion Act, through this remarkable work of documentary filmmaking at its very best, we can appreciate how it so profoundly shaped the country we are today. And now, at this moment in time, we feel the reverberations of that history. We're confronted with deep questions about what this country will be for succeeding generations. As important as it is that we share our stories and our histories with you in this space, it is not enough, and we know it's not enough. So for CAAM, tonight kicks off a national education and community outreach campaign around the Chinese Exclusion Act film that will bolster a national PBS broadcast later this year. We have a team of talented educators from the Oakland Unified School District and UC Berkeley who are developing curriculum, and we will be providing community conversation kits and DVDs for hundreds of community groups in hundreds of cities and towns in all parts of the country, red state and blue. We would love and appreciate your continued support of these efforts. And related to that, we have a very special group with us tonight that I'd like to give a shout out to. They are key to the work ahead in all of this. It's a group of 65 principals and assistant principals from the San Francisco Unified School District, right here in front. Would you guys all come up? This group includes Wen Chan, who is the former interim superintendent, the first Asian American superintendent of the San Francisco School District. His parents were both deeply and directly affected by the Chinese Exclusion Act. So many thanks to you for coming. Thanks to Myung Lee, the current acting superintendent and a CAAM board member. And thank you all for everything you do for our kids. So the other thing, that we need to do is become more involved in civic action. And I urge you to participate with us on May 6th, the 135th anniversary of the signing of the Chinese Exclusion Act in Portsmouth Square, Chinatown. We will join with many other organizations in a rally for inclusion and for immigrant rights. For more information, please contact Chinese for Affirmative Action, CAA, or contact us at CAAM. Thank you. I'm about to turn this back over, so I just want to say, our presence, our participation in all sectors of public life is more vital than ever. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of the program. Stay woke. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I guess some sobering news. Tonight will be the last time that Stephen will be addressing the crowd in March. He gets back for that. Oh my God. I also want to echo our thanks to the school district. Recently I was interviewed and they asked me to name 3 of the top influences of my life, and 2 of them were teachers. And so whether you get enough pay or not enough recognition, I just want you to know that you are very, very important to the community, and we want to thank you for your participation. You know, if we wanted to acknowledge everybody that's important to this festival, basically I'd be going one row after another. But there are some people that do it in the public arena, and we want to acknowledge them for their efforts. One of them is the supervisor for District 7, and he's here joining us today, and we want to thank him for being here, Norman Yi. Norman, stand up and give a And one of his esteemed colleagues will be our next speaker. She is a supervisor and happens to be the representative for CAAM's district. And she has been a longtime supporter of CAAM and all the other things that CAAM is involved in. She is also the first Korean American elected official in San Francisco, and she has worked tirelessly for youth and other community groups. And we are so happy to have her here to help us celebrate. Please welcome Supervisor Jane Kim.
Was that Ravi? I think I recognize your voice. Thank you. Thank you for applauding. First of all, Stephen, I have to thank you for your announcement, because for those of us who are huge fans of CAAM and also huge fans of March Madness, this is good news. I think many of us try to actually work our game watching schedule around the movies that we want to see. And so I'm quite excited that CAAMFest will be moving to API Heritage Month. I thought I would start today with a speech of the Governor of California from the late 1800s. While the settlement of our state is of the first importance, the characters of those who shall become settlers is worthy of scarcely less consideration. To my mind, it is clear that the settlement amongst us of an inferior race is to be discouraged by every legitimate means. Asia, with her numberless millions, sends to our shores the dregs of her population. Large numbers of this class are already here, and unless we do something early to check their immigration, the question, which of the two tides of immigration, meeting upon the shores of the Pacific, shall be turned back, will be forced upon our consideration, when far more difficult than now of disposal. There can be no doubt but that the presence of numbers amongst us of a degraded and distinct people must exercise a deleterious influence upon the superior race, and to a certain extent repel desirable immigration. It will afford me great pleasure to concur with the legislature in any constitutional action having for its object the repression of the immigration of the Asiatic races. Leland Stanford, the Governor of California, in his inauguration speech when he was sworn in. Well, we have some other elected officials now.
Call it out!
And we also have elected officials that have come from this community, and I do want to recognize Supervisor Norman Yi, who I serve with, and of course former Supervisor Mabel Tang, who is also here in the audience, that were mentors of mine that paved the way so that more Asian Americans that have worked in our communities could serve their community in office. I think tonight is particularly apropos because the intersection of so many of the things that we are thinking about, that is on our mind, that we are concerned with, is being expressed in the event that is here. I think more than ever, many of us here in this room think a lot about the delicate nature of the democratic institution that we are a part of, and more than ever, wonder how resilient and strong our institution is. I think in a time when we have a president that is trying to roll back over a century of activism and fighting and organizing that expanded the definition of what it means to be American and what it means to be a citizen of this country. It is important for all of us that are here, that know our history, that we're fortunate enough to study Asian American studies like myself and others, to fight back. And to show how strong and resilient the system truly is. president attacks the poor, the vulnerable, our seniors, immigrants, Muslims, LGBT, refugees, it is our duty to fight back. And when I joined, and I was sworn in to be one of the elected representatives here in the city and county of San Francisco, I took an oath. And I took an oath to defend the the Constitution of the state of California and the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm not scared to call Trump an enemy of the state. He is an enemy to the very institution that so many people fought for those of us that are here today, to allow festivals like CAAMFest to exist, that have allowed me to actually even think about running for office and winning. And not only is Trump trying to attack so many of the most vulnerable in our community, he is also, in a very scary way, attacking the media and the arts. And I have to say, for all of the communities that we care about, there is no democratic institution without the media and the arts. We are at a loss if those things disappear, and Trump is strongly attacking those institutions today. And so what does it mean to be a part of the resistance? Of course, being here tonight is one of them. Supporting our community and supporting the arts is a huge piece of it. But if you are not a member of CAAM, you must join today. Institutions like this are currently at a risk as the president puts forward a national budget proposal that completely eliminates the National Endowment for the Arts and the Humanities and Public Broadcasting. And so I hope you will join me as I renew my own membership for CAAM in making sure that as we fight back, as we think about those that are the most vulnerable amongst us, that we also think very strongly about how we continue to support independent media and the arts. That is actually what scares me the most in the time and environment like today. Because if we lose our ability to disseminate the truth, to disseminate our history, to be able to express ourselves and express the First Amendment, we are truly at a loss for those that are the most vulnerable amongst us. And so I want to thank CAAM and Director Stephen Gong, and of course our great festival Director Masashi Niwana, for really holding the lead here in San Francisco and putting on one of my favorite events in San Francisco every single year in the month of March, moving to May. I'm going to continue the marketing for CAAM in case any of you show up here on the second Thursday of March. But I also want to recognize the two great producers of tonight's closing night film, Rick Burns and Li-Shin. Thank you so much for coming here to San Francisco. I'm a huge fan of your work. As a native New Yorker, I watched your New York documentary series, amongst many others, on PBS, which we also must continue to support. And we do have certificates of commendation on behalf of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, including Norman Yee, for both of you, which I will give to Stephen to give to you. But per usual, we have our commitment to ensuring that Stephen's walls remain quite full on 9th Street. And so, as is our tradition, the Board of Supervisors would like to present Stephen Gong with our certificates of commendation, thanking you for your decades of service, both to the San Francisco community, our Asian American community, and the arts. Thank you so much for continuing on this work and being our fearless leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. We really appreciate your support, your words, and we're very grateful that we will no longer have to juggle March Madness with our events. I would have come to the festival anyway because I love CAAM. I love what they do. I'm an old documentary producer from PBS, so I love documentaries, so I would have loved to come anyway. But when you say that Rick Burns and Li-Shin, you are coming, to present their work, well, that pretty much said it easily for me. And like Jane, I'm a big fan of their work, and it's interesting, I probably watched the New York documentary various times throughout the year, just because I love New York so much, and I love what it says, and Lee, what a great job you put together in terms of editing that. And it struck me that I remember there was a young Donald Trump talking about architecture and the building of the skyscrapers. And I just thought how sadly ironic it was that he was in there. Because the documentary is really a story about immigrants. It really tells the story of how immigrants shaped New York, and by doing that, shaped our country. And so it's very ironic to think about the fact that he was in there and does not seem to appreciate that. However, we do, and we also appreciate the work that Rick Burns and Li-Shin you have done for, I don't know, telling that story again in such an intriguing way about the immigrants there, as well as the ones that are affected and were impacted by the Chinese Exclusion Act. That is another story of the community, and you couldn't have two better people helping to tell that story. To help make that presentation and to tell us a little bit more about that and get us ready for the show, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rick Burns and Li-Shin Yu.
Wow. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone. It's so thrilling to be here. And just want to say a few thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have so many people and institutions to thank. And we would not be here to be able to present this film without the generous public support funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities, PBS, Corporation for and we really thank them from the bottom of our hearts. We also owe an enormous debt to the New York Historical Society and Louis Muir, its president. Our film project got started in collaboration with the society who put up an exhibition about the Chinese Exclusion Act. Came out in September 2014, and the exhibition now has its permanent home at the Chinese Historical Society right here in Chinatown, San Francisco. And a huge thank to Sue Lee, its executive director, for her tireless efforts on behalf of Chinese American history, preservation, interpretation, bringing the exhibition to San Francisco, and her enormous help in providing us support in our filmmaking process. And we very much want to thank you, a special group of early critical funders for film, for the outreach, and some of them are here. Agnes Chan, Howard Nelson, Mary and Buck G, Linda and David Lay, Vivian Nagy and Janet Young for providing our signature Chinese American family photograph, George Ao, and also want to single out the extraordinary talented people who gave their hearts and souls to the film. Our remarkable narrator, Hoon Lee, who couldn't be here, fantastic Korean-American actor. He's our narrator, and 5 very talented people who read from the historical documents and letters and really brought life to the lived experience of the Chinese American with incredible feeling, nuance, and power. Russell Wong, contribution to the film. For me, on a personal level, even though I am tri-hard New Yorker, Yorker now, but I went to school in California, college here in California. I have lots of friends here. I have many family members here, many who are here in the audience. And this, to me, does feel like coming home, and it's an honor to present this film here for its premiere showing.
Well, to echo Li-Shin's remark, thank you, Robert, thank you, Jane, thank you, Steve. It's kind of wackily fantastic to be here. It's just an amazing, the Castro, it's an amazing theater, and we couldn't imagine a better place to premiere this film. I do want to just say one thing on a political note, and that's, Donald, what's up with that? That's all I want to say. It's going to be over my freaking dead body at the National Endowment for the Humanities, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and PBS go anywhere or lose $1. So that's, 3 or 4 years ago, Li-Shin and I were lucky enough to sort of get put together with CAAM, who are the co-producers of this film in association with us and the New York Historical Society. And I have to say that it's been a partnership for us made in heaven. Stephen Gong, Donald Young, you're incredible people. Each one, you walk in the door and it's really one of the amazing institutions in American cultural life. You have been there with us every step of the way. You have had our back, you have provided resources, you have raised money, you have contributed to the film again and again and again. So we really thank you from the bottom of our heart. We'd love to make another film with you just as soon as possible. A number of people from our filmmaking company, Stephen Chase Films, are here. Robin Espinola, our producer, is here. Chi Yang, our incredible associate editor, is here. I just want to have a shout out to Michael Chin, one of the greatest cinematographers in the country, Buddy Squires, and our composer, Brian Keane. The heart and soul of the film are the men and women on camera who have made this story their own and preserved its history over time. A couple of them are here tonight. I'm glad to say Mei Nai, extraordinary historian at Columbia, Ling-Chi Wong from Berkeley. We're so grateful to you. But I just want to mention these people's names. They're on camera, but they're also behind the camera helping us tell this complex, deep American story over the last 3 or 4 years. Jack Chen, Erica Lee, Scott Wong, Wencho Yu, Gene Feltzer, Mary Lou, Martin Gold, and David Lee, who's also here tonight. So to all of you, I just so grateful. The film you're going to see tonight, this is a kind of a good moment to stretch and take a deep breath, and don't freak out when I say this. The film is 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm sorry we couldn't show you the whole thing. There will be no intermission. Unlike Gone with the Wind and Lawrence of Arabia. We knew from the start this was a deeply American story. It involves Chinese who came here, but it is not just a Chinese-American story. It is about memory and forgetting. It's about how we define what it means to be an American citizen. And there's no story that I know that is so little known, that is more important to be told now and again and again and again, brought out of the closet and made part of the curriculum at every level of primary and secondary and higher education. We finished the film last Tuesday. Right, just 5 days ago. Li-Shin put finishing touches on it. I'm sure we're going to tinker with it. There'll be changes made in the coming weeks and months. But this is the very first time it's been shown in public. So what better place, as far as we're concerned, to show it to this extraordinary community, the heart and soul of the Asian American community. Besides noting that last month was the centennial of the federal legislation, the Asiatic Barred Zone, which extended the Chinese Exclusion Act to include every nation in Asia west of the islands of Japan and east of Turkey. I wanted to also, besides just sort of thinking about that sobering thought, two people who are not here tonight and could not be here tonight, two really extraordinary historians. Kevin Starr, who's in the film, California State Librarian Emeritus, extraordinary, the Dean of California Historians, seventh generation Californian, 9 books on California history, died in January quite suddenly, and really is one of the people who's really kept alive the meaning of history in California and for America, and so we miss him and honor him. Philip Choi, without whom there would be no history of Chinese America. An extraordinary architect and writer and historian who tirelessly, along with him, Mark Li, chronicled the history, collected artifacts, dug deep into the history of Chinese Americans. We were really honored to be able to interview Phil. You'll see him at the beginning of the film, and just as honored to film a small portion of the extraordinary collection he gathered over the decades, in which is preserved the memory of this extraordinary story. He died last Thursday, and so I just wanted to say with deep condolences to the Starr family and to the Choi family and to all the people who knew and loved both of these extraordinary historians. Li-Shin and I wanted, with enormous gratitude for what they accomplished in their rich, full lives and for the communities that they were part of, we want to dedicate the film and this screening to the memory of both these two strong, incredible individuals. So, thank you for coming. It's a long movie, but we feel it's a very, very important story to tell. Thank you for coming.
Maybe a 15-minute Q&A, just so you can learn a little bit more. So I'd like to invite back to the stage, please, the co-directors of the film, Rick Burns and Li-Shin Yu. Rick and Li-Shin, do you have any others? Is May Nye here? And if she is, can she come up? Yeah, Lindsay Long and David Bay, you guys are here. Yeah, we would love to have you guys. So I'll jump to it. Rick and Li-Shin, this is the first time I've seen the whole thing, so.
Us too.
I'm in awe. Oh, here's May. It is so wonderful to have you. Wonderful. And good. David's here.
Hi, David.
Our own David Lay. So we'll move down in here, just there. There you go. Okay. Rick and Li-Shin, over a 24-year period, you have done, the quintessential American stories, The Way West, The Donner Party, most recently, The Pilgrims. You know, my question to each of you is sort of, how much did you already know about this story? And in a sense, what surprised you the most in compiling and fitting this in with what we understand to be, you know, the American story?
Just quickly, I actually didn't really know very much about this until the mid-90s when Rick and I were finishing a film on the way west, and we discovered the story of the Snake River Massacre, and it was just so shocking, not only because of the violence, but the fact that I didn't really know very much about it. So over the decades, it's become, we've been talking about doing something, and, you know, then had this opportunity, and it's just been an amazing experience, you know, with help of scholars like May to bring the story to life.
You know, I think, I really feel this, you know, filmmakers always, when they finish a film, they go, this is the most important film I've ever made. But I definitely know that this one feels that it has a particular resonance right now in ways that are so obvious. And in addition to that, Jack Chen, who's not here tonight, John Kuo-wei Chen, historian at NYU, you know, has stressed how much this is about the way we construct historical memory. And, you know, some things are vastly important because they're submerged, and some things are sort of standing right in the open. And this is, as I said initially, the story that more than any other seems to me to be part of the sort of the unconscious of the American body politic. And it needs to be made conscious that it was suppressed and forgotten, or there were silences and shadows for all sorts of reasons that have to do with the act itself. And so it seems like bringing it to light in ways following the footsteps of, you know, this extraordinary cadre of scholars, May, you know, Eric Lee, so many others, was really just, it was the opportunity and the privilege of a lifetime.
Thank you very much. And you know, we're going to have a microphone out in the audience. So if you please think of a question you'd like and make your way down there, it would be great. I'll do one more, maybe beforehand. Or actually, you know, I'd like to touch on, it's an amazing thing for us, David, to be in this community here where so much of this history has taken place. I have to say, in a way, we sometimes acknowledge we're in our own bubble, but I don't think we sometimes realize that we live and walk and daily confront this kind of amazing history. How did you start to get involved in learning and living this history?
I don't know. I just, being part of the community, reading a lot, and coming tonight, the thought in my mind was, how much will he cut out? And I'm the only one without a PhD behind my name. But it's just being part of the community. It's been part of our history. CAAM has a lot to do with it. All the stories that CAAM has come up with year after year, 35 years.
Thank you. And May, where did you start your research into this? Did you feel like being Chinese was an integral part of you studying?
Well, of course. I mean, I'm a daughter of immigrants, so that's my life also. I've lived in the Bay Area before, but I'm from New York, so it's a different kind of experience. And I was just telling Rick, I mean, this, you know, maybe for better or for worse, this couldn't come at a more important time in our country. And I think I can't wait for this to air on national television because it tells a story, it tells our story, it shows what was done to our people, which Americans need to know that, but it also is so relevant to our present moment. And what's going on today with anti-immigration laws and prejudices and what's going on with the Muslim ban, they all have their roots legally and politically in the Chinese exclusion. There's a direct legal line between Chinese exclusion and the Muslim ban. So we have not really come very far at all in terms of you know, how this country wrestles with immigration and has always singled out certain groups against which the rest of the country defines itself. So I think that this is a really, really important lesson for the whole country.
Thank you very much. Right down here, yes.
So when is this documentary going to air? PBS, right? PBS.
PBS, right.
And when's it going to air? And will they also have it available for sale?
It might be available for sale before it airs. I think it'll definitely be this coming fall. Date hasn't been set, but it'll definitely be this fall. And you know, thanks to our partnership with CAAM, CAAM is going to be sort of pushing it out in a variety of formats, sort of on the educational front, in terms of public engagement, screenings. We'll send it to whatever festivals, we'll take it. I mean, we will, with Stephen, Gong, and Dao Young, and Li-Shin, and all of our colleagues, we'll march at any place that we'll see it over the next 6 months, and then it'll have a national broadcast. And you know, our hope is that it reaches a wide audience, and if that audience is anywhere near as attentive as you guys have been tonight, God bless them.
Wasn't it amazing? This whole audience was right on it, and you know, clearly the relevance today, and in a sense, so much of our anxiety and concerns about where this country's heading, and yet it was so powerful to see the dots connected, to see that this really does have deep roots in the American experience and psyche, and yet there is a way to fight back that we have, and we'll emerge out of this stronger, we have to believe. I did want to add, for any of those of you who are really interested, go on our website. There's a little pull-down menu under the Chinese Exclusion Act, and there's a form you can fill out if your group would like to get on a list for us, so that we'll be in touch for screening information. And then the second thing I just wanted to add is we've arranged for a screening at the San Francisco Public Library main branch. We haven't worked out all the details, but it'll be in May. So that will probably be the next screening here in San Francisco. And you have a question?
We have found Asian American Studies at Berkeley, and the Chinese Exclusion Act was a real discovery for us then. And in recent months, I started a lot of discussions about immigration out and saying, well, we knew that Trump would bring us back. We didn't think he'd bring us back more than 100 years. And I think that you've done it very well. And I'd like to be part of helping you use it to organize it. I'd like to bring it to Oakland as part of our immigration struggles. But the question I had for you is what your plans are. Because I have to say, when I was a school board member, I fought to get the Exclusion Act and textbooks. A film may be a better medium. The problem is that we reinvent the discovery of this, we try to tell the story, but it seems to only go so far. So it has to be something that's more continuing.
You know, we'll take courage from that, and we're glad that, you know, it feels like it can resonate, and we'll do everything we can to make it available in school systems across California, across the country for free, to whatever extent that's possible. The National Endowment for the Humanities is going to be, actually I shouldn't even be saying this, but they will be funding in a very significant way CAAM to push out an outreach and educational campaign for it across the year, right? It's just going to be announced May. Every 2 days, so but it's really, so CAAM, you will really have some wherewithal, you know, it will always take more, but, you know, the wherewithal to really push it out and to engage with educational communities across the country.
Another question.
A beautiful film. This is just a quick comment to say that as I was watching the film, I couldn't believe how many parallels there were with the relationship of United States and Puerto Rico. Starting with our identity of Taínos, which they told us we didn't exist. And wanted to point out that as Juan Kim Ark was approved that he was in fact a citizen in 1898, Puerto Rico was being invaded, and sold for $1 million in a package deal along with the Philippines.
You know, I do want to say, we hoped, and I know that, you know, you might well object to it in how sort of sketchy and scant we were in the detail. We were trying to show, especially by the China trade sort of prequel part of the film, that, you know, the movement of peoples doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens as a part of complicated global movements that have to do with politics and economics and power and people. And that, you know, you don't, you know, so this is, for America in terms of immigration law and citizenship rights, this is the kind of the DNA of that story is contained most vividly, but it is true of the way people define citizenship and America's relationship to countries and territories and places around the world. So I'm glad, you know, to hear you feel that resonance with your own experience.
Thank you for putting the film together. I feel that you put me into a time warp because my mom just turned 99 and she was born in 1918 and my dad was in 1908. He was part of the group that went through the amnesty program in the 60s. And we often had the FBI dropping by to see us to check up on what the communists were doing during the 60-70 period. I think there's a possibility you may have had part of my family at the tail end of that film. And it would be wonderful for me to be able to verify it at some point. The other question is, will the film be maintained in its entirety and not cut for editing purposes, for educational purpose, you know, for showing purposes later?
Well, I think, let's have like an audience participation. Who wants to have it be shorter? Who would like to keep it the way it is? We're going to keep it the way it is. We got two parts, right? It's a little bit of a long haul, and also for all sorts of educational circumstances, it needs to be modularized so that parts of it can be absorbed within a 40-minute, you know, or a half an hour sitting, depending. So it's going to be used in all sorts of ways. I actually think that it's probably going to be, in my view, going to get longer by 10 or 15 minutes now, because there's some things that have to do with scientific racism, and in fact, an extraordinary moment, May, that you have that's not in, and that David has as well, in talking about the relationship of modernism to the Euro-American view of the Chinese, and how the Chinese were seen from the 18th century on as being somehow remote from the possibility of modernization. They represented the stagnant, the unmodernizable. And there are things like that I feel are missing in the film in terms of making you understand why it was, or not even so much why, how it was, that the grip of these racist ideas took hold in what form. I think we'll make it a little bit longer, cut it in half, and then just say the hell with PBS if they don't want to run it.
I think we have time for one more question right there.
Hello. So my question comes from reading about the history of immigration, not just in the United States, but also in Southeast Asia, particularly with the Chinese, because there's a lot of Chinese immigration to Southeast Asia, like for hundreds of years, right? And I think one thing that stands out in that history is the idea of sojourners and settlers, right? There's like the idea that, you know, there are these contract laborers that come for maybe a few years and they don't intend to stay. They're sojourners and they come back to China. And then there are these guys who say, you know, I like this place, I want to stay here, right? We're settlers, right? So how would you characterize the early immigration of the Chinese Americans in proportion like of sojourners and settlers? And also, how do you think the proportion of this affected the way they were perceived by the American people?
You know, Chinese were not different than other immigrants who came from other parts of the world to the United States. So at the turn of the 20th century, when you had 20 to 25 million people who came from Europe, the return rates of migration were very similar to that of the Chinese. So 50% of the Europeans who came from the 1890s to World War I went home. They were sojourners also. And some groups, like I think Greeks, you know, it was 80% were sojourners. So the Chinese had both settlers and sojourners, but in many ways that was the same with all mass labor migration groups. People go to make money to send back to their family, and their goal is to go home and to buy a piece of land or, you know, to invest in the family business or something. Other people come and they might have started with that idea, but then they end up staying because they never make enough to go home. And there's some people who come from the very beginning who want to settle. So the interesting thing is not that Chinese were different, but the racism that was involved and why people saw them as being impermanent, right? And in a way, the laws forced them to be seen as impermanent because the law said they couldn't assimilate.
Thank you, Rick and Li-Shin, for making such an incredible